Thank you, Madam President. For over 400 days, those who wish to see Israel villainized, demonized, and isolated have been slinging mud against the wall, hoping something will stick. Today's report from the IPC is the latest handful thrown against the wall. It is a true masterclass in misinformation, bias, and dishonest reporting. So if you take even a moment to examine its claims rationally, that mud slides down to the floor, exposing the emptiness and libel hidden beneath. It is an exercise in slander, disguised as humanitarian concern. The IPC's latest report echoes one of the most unfounded, slanderous accusations against the State of Israel throughout this conflict. Just a few hours ago, 2 Israeli civilians were murdered by Hezbollah in their latest missile attack after having fired 15,000 missiles at Israel since October 8. Yet, we will not be debating nor condemning that murderous terror regime. No, we must discuss a baseless report. Allow me to address all of the IPC's primary libels directly and then lay out the facts. First, the IPC claims a famine is imminent in northern Gaza. That is simply false. Since early October, Israel has facilitated the entry of over 713 trucks of aid to northern Gaza alone, with the goal of sustaining a steady flow of 50 trucks daily. We have delivered essential food, water, and medical supplies to areas such as Beit Lahia and Jabalia in northern Gaza, where around 10,000 civilians remain. Across Gaza, 12 bakeries are operational, producing massive quantities of bread for the population. The IPC's claim of famine has no basis in reality. Its only basis is in political bias. Ironically, the IPC's own figures show that the situation in Gaza, including in the north, is more stable now than it was before October. How could they claim a famine is imminent while at the same time providing figures of an improving situation? Second, the IPC asserts that humanitarian access in Gaza is insufficient. Once again, this is blatantly incorrect. Israel has established multiple access points to facilitate the flow of aid, with dozens of trucks entering Gaza daily through various crossings. Alone, the Erez East and Erez West crossing in the north support 600 trucks weekly. Aid also enters through routes coordinated with Egypt and Jordan, as well as via the maritime route through the Ashdod port, where over 2,000 pallets of aid arrived from the UAE just last week. This morning, the Kisufim crossing reopened in center Gaza. This checkpoint was closed in 2005. It was reopened this morning with new inspection facilities and roads to ensure safe passage. Are these the actions of a state wishing to cause a famine? Are these the actions of a state wishing for death and suffering? Or are these the actions of a nation committed to safeguarding a civilian population exploited as human shields by murderous terrorists? Third, the IPC claims that Gaza's food distribution infrastructure is failing. Israel has been proactive in supporting Gaza's food supply chain. With 3 million pita loaves produced daily, we have ensured stable access to bread for the population. Additionally, 6 tankers of cooking gas have recently entered Gaza to sustain essential infrastructure. These initiatives support a robust and consistent food aid network, not the failing system the IPC report claims. Fourth, the IPC suggests that medical facilities are collapsing due to a lack of supplies. This could not be further from the truth. Over the past few weeks alone, Israel has coordinated the entry of over 50,000 liters of fuel, 180 units of blood, and hundreds of medical supply boxes to northern Gaza's hospitals. More than 200 patients were evacuated to hospitals in the south, with support from the WHO. Fifth, the IPC claims humanitarian agencies are obstructed. In reality, the primary cause of aid delays lays in logistical issues on the Gazan side. Over 900 trucks currently sit at the Kerem Shalom crossing, packed with aid and awaiting collection by international humanitarian agencies. Some of these trucks have been sitting in empty lot for weeks as the aid rots away. We are not blocking that. That's already in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel has proactively assisted by enhancing passage for the aid trucks, extending operating hours, and creating alternative routes to expand distribution pathways. The logistical delay is not Israel's doing. It is a failure of others to take responsibility. The report also ignores the critical role of Hamas in obstructing these agencies. I haven't heard a word from all the people who briefed us about Hamas during those briefings, hijacking trucks and stealing the aid for their own use. Finally, the IPC report outrageously questions Israel's commitment to humanitarian aid. Esteemed colleagues, our actions speak for themselves. Israel holds daily meetings with UN agencies to ensure that humanitarian needs are met despite constant security threats from terrorists. Just yesterday, we again expanded the humanitarian zone in the Muasi area with more field hospitals, shelter, along with greater provision of food, water, medicine, and medical equipment. We have worked through logistical obstacles, improved infrastructure, and prioritized the welfare of Gaza's civilians, even while under threat from Hamas exploiting those same civilians as cover for their murderous aims. Madam President, the IPC report is neither unbiased nor impartial. It relies on sources with a clear agenda to demonize and delegitimize Israel. Their sources include Al Jazeera, hardly known for their objectivity in covering Israel. For the previous two reports, both of which were proven false, Israel published detailed responses. We never heard back from the IPC on any of our concerns. But when you look back at those two reports, at least those reports named all of their sources. This latest one fails to even disclose the organizations which made up the analysis. From where they took that data? They should tell you that. Council members, the Council's priorities remain twisted and distorted. While we debate the report of an organization that has tragically robbed itself of any and all credibility, we avoid the real issues at hand. While we discuss a hypothetical situation that will not come to pass, we ignore the 900 trucks collecting dust in a lot in Gaza waiting to be distributed by UN agencies. While we examine the words of prejudiced organizations making absurd accusations, we fail to examine the role of Hamas in hijacking aid, which they reroute into their machine of death and misery. Hamas has hijacked aid trucks, diverted resources, and used civilians as cover for its terror activities. Every truck diverted by Hamas means fewer resources for innocent people. Yet, how much time does this council dedicate to that reality? In recent days, we have gathered and released mountains of evidence on the discontent and anger among the Gazan population directed at Hamas. I don't know, Mr. Mansour, when was the last time you visited Gaza, or you slept in Gaza, or you met someone from Gaza, but we can show you footage what the people of Gaza really think about Hamas. Video of mothers screaming that Hamas took their sons, men crying out that it is Hamas who is to blame for their suffering. We have also released video footage of Hamas terrorists torturing Gazan civilians. violating all concepts of human rights and morality. While the Council discussed a report based on the word of Al Jazeera and unnamed organizations, the people of Gaza themselves are telling you what must be done to resolve the situation. They are crying out to you, listen to them. Get out of your own way, because we simply cannot continue in this manner. This obsession with vilifying Israel is detached from reality. Let us only examine the facts at hand instead of the political agendas that have plagued our debates for so long. Before leaving the chamber today, I urge each of you to consider the facts. Look closely at Israel's actions on the ground. Consider the risks our soldiers take to uphold these humanitarian commitments, often in the face of active threats. Recognize that while the IPC might sling mud, Israel is working persistently at great personal cost to deliver aid and uphold the principles of international law. Acknowledge that Hamas is the source of the situation. Follow the cries of the Gazan people and focus your energy on defeating their true oppressors, the Hamas terrorists. As we have seen before, there are agencies whose focus is bashing Israel, and there are agencies dedicated to real humanitarian work. This Council has a responsibility to make that distinction and focus on enhancing those agencies committed to genuine aid, not those invested in spreading lies. Ultimately, Israel will continue its work to protect civilian lives and fulfill humanitarian obligations despite biased reports and manipulated narratives. I thank you, Madam President.